Have you heard of one Humpty Dumpty? How he fell with a roll and a rumble, and fell off like Ladal of a crumple by the butt of the magazine wall.
Welcome to James Joyce's divine and delirious comedy, Finnegans Wake. In this episode, number 5, we'll hear Irish-Canadian actor and my good friend and colleague Richard Harte reading pages 19 to 24 of Joyce's last novel, which will include the famous prankquean fable. I'm Adam Seelig, the director of the reading you'll soon hear. Finnegans Wake is a production of One Little Goat Theatre Company. For the next 5 years, One Little Goat will film and record all 17 chapters, roughly 30 hours, of Joyce's Finnegans Wake before live audiences in various locations, screening and releasing them along the way with the aim of completing the entire book in time for its 90th birthday, May the 4th of 2029. One Little Goat Theatre Company is an official charity in Canada and the United States. If you'd like to support our work, please visit us online at www.onelittlegoat.org to make a charitable donation. And if monetary support is not an option, you can still help this podcast by rating and reviewing it and by spreading the word. To get in touch, you'll find our email address on the One Little Goat Theatre Company website, and we'd love to hear from you. In 1899, 40 years before James Joyce's dream language epic Finnegans Wake was published, Sigmund Freud pointed out in the interpretation of dreams that, quote, words are often treated as things in dreams, and then they go through combinations, displacements, substitutions, and condensations, close quote. Dreams, in other words, play with words. They pun. Finnegans Wake multiplies such wordplay, often taking double entendres and doubling them again. Chapter 1 of Finnegans Wake, which can serve as an overture to the rest of the novel, has 3 standout scenes. The Musy Room, which we heard in podcast episode 3, Mutt and Jute from our episode 4, and the Prankquean, which we'll hear Richard Harte read in today's episode. While I'm eager to get you to Richard's reading, and honestly you can still enjoy the Prankquean without an introduction, so feel free to jump ahead, I'm going to outline and point out a few things in this brilliant, bewildering piece of writing. Deliberately bewildering, because this fairy tale for adults, like so much else in the Wake, takes us, readers and listeners, back to an almost pre-verbal state where sound can be pleasure before it is sense. That's why I often think of the Wake as a kind of Mother Goose for grown-ups, as I mentioned in the first podcast episode. With the introduction of the Prankquean, we can now, to Mother Goose, add Hans Christian Andersen. The Prankquean is a rare case of sequential narrative in the famously non-linear Wake. Like many children's stories, it opens with a long, long time ago, or the Wakean equivalent of that proverbial beginning to a story, and follows the 3-part structure of many fables involving conflict and resolution. From the 3 little pigs to the 3 billy goats gruff, there's a first event, a second similar event, and finally a most dramatic event, after which you won't be surprised to discover they all lived happily ever after, or the Wakean equivalent of that proverbial end to a story, which Joyce turns into something that sounds like, and they all drank tea. But this being a fable for grown-ups, the Wake gives us, quote, and they all drank free, close quote. The Prankquean character is modeled on Ireland's celebrated sea queen and maritime pirate Grace O'Malley, and the story is modeled on a popular tale of her altercation with the Earl of Howth in Dublin in the late 16th century. So popular is the tale that I'll turn to a website representing one of the world's most popular drinks, beer, for the tale's retelling. Here is how Howth's very own brewery, Hope Beer, summarizes it. According to the popular tale, Grace O'Malley was refused entry to Howth Castle in 1576 when she attempted to call in unexpectedly to the Earl of Howth. Furious with this social snub, she kidnapped the Earl's grandson, and her ransom was a promise that unanticipated guests would never be turned away again. She also made the Earl promise that the gates of Deer Park, where the castle is located, would never be closed to the public again. The gates are still open to this day, and an extra place is set for unexpected guests during formal dinners in the dining room. In the Wakes version, Grace O'Malley becomes the prank queen, who is also referred to as Grace O'Malice, and the Earl of Howth becomes Jarl van Huther. Jarl meaning chief in Danish, a reminder of the cultural and literal clashes between the Irish and Ireland's Viking invaders, as we heard in the previous episode with the dialogue of Mutt and Jute. The tale begins a long time ago in an Edenic setting that references Adam and the woman born from his rib, the eternal, quote, ribber robber, close quote, Eve. It's a beginning that echoes and recirculates the very opening line of Finnegans Wake, which took us past Eve and Adam's to Howth Castle and environs. This being a kind of paradise, we're in a prelapsarian world of universal love when, open quote, every Billy lived a love with everybody else, close quote. I love that phrase. Enter Jarl van Huther, positioned high up in his fortress. The text initially calls it his lamp house, which corresponds to the Bailey Lighthouse in Howth, where we discover Van Huther suggestively, quote, laying cold hands on himself, close quote. It can get lonely at the top, so who can blame him? We then hear of his children, described as, quote, two little Jimimies, close quote, or Geminis, i.e. they are twins, and also introduced to, quote, their dummy, close quote, which continues to be a mystery for virtually everyone who reads this fable, myself included. From there, the story carries out its three-peating structure. The prank queen spontaneously appears, she poses a riddle to Van Huther, gets denied or shut down. Notice how the word shut, so close to shit, pops out at that moment, leading her to kidnap one of the twins, unleash a flood of rain, and disappear with the child for 40 years. 40 years being a biblical number for the passage of an entire generation, echoing the 40 biblical days of the flood survived by Noah. Then the prank queen returns and the event repeats with some variation, and again she returns for a third and final and most dramatic, explosive iteration that breaks the cycle of conflict between her and the Jarl, bringing the tale to its happy resolution, and they all drank free. This is followed by a summation of the story that foreshadows later moments in the wake, establishes the novel's family unit, and closes with a riff on the official motto for the city of Dublin. That is, translated from the Latin, the obedience of the citizens produces a happy city. Of the many things that can be said about this story, here are 4. 1. Queen, in Prank Queen, is spelled Quean, allowing us to hear her as a ruler, Quen, while reading her as the archaic Old English definition of a Quean queen, which my dictionary defines as an impudent or ill-behaved girl or woman, a prostitute. By the way, for those who want to read along with today's excerpt, you can always find the complete text in the podcast transcript on One Little Goat's website. 2. Of the 35 sentences comprising the Prank Queen fable, 21 of them begin with the word and, with the other sentences beginning with the words but, so, and a few others. This highlights the oral quality of the storytelling. So-called proper written grammar would never begin a sentence with the word and it contributes to the continuous flow and stream of the tale. The wake here, to my ear, is working with the cadences of ancient storytelling, exemplified by the rhythms of the Hebrew Bible. Take a look at the first chapter of the Bible's first book, Genesis, referenced by the Prank Queen fable with its Adam and Eve beginning, and you'll see that every single verse starts with the word and. 3. Jarl van Huther's stuttering, explosive response to the Prank Queen's third and final visit includes the second of the Wake's 10 famous 100-letter thunder words. And just as the first thunder word marked Tim Finnegan's fall from the ladder, and by extension humanity's fall from grace, this second thunder word marks the Jarl's fall from the heights of his fortress. 4. Keep an ear out for the names of the Jimimies, or twins, and how they go through those combinations, displacements, substitutions, and condensations we heard Freud mention earlier. One is named Christopher, which likely makes Christopher sad, or in French, triste, while the other is named Hilary, which likely makes Hilary happy. After the Prank Queen abducts them, their names change. The syllables in Hilary swap to become Larry Hill, and those in Tristopher become tougher trees. There's so much more to say about the ever-evocative Prank Queen fable. Much has been made of its relation to the rest of the wake, especially in how it represents, or as Freud might put it, condenses, the establishment of the novel's central family of ALP, HCE, and their children. For those who'd like to read more about it, I'll list some resources in this episode's transcript, which again you can find on One Little Goat's website. It's time for a quick overview of the rest of today's excerpt, which begins on page 19, a couple of pages before we meet the Prank Queen. The, quote, meander tale, close quote, we heard on the previous page and in the previous podcast episode has now grown into a, open quote, Neanderthal tale, close quote. So now, not only is it ancient and meandering, it also stretches the truth. And again, we're reminded of the wake's ancient underpinnings. Quote, all was of ancientry. One of my favorite phrases in the book comes up here, open quote, but the world, mind, is, was, and will be writing its own runes forever, man, close quote. It's such an expressive moment, suggesting, among many things, that the world rights with an R its wrongs, rights with a W its ruins, and rights with a W its runes with a W. With that word alone, runes with a W, connoting a whole range of writing and prophecy, including mysterious symbols, spells and incantations, ancient Norse wisdom poetry, writing its own runes. It's one of the wake's many resonant phrases that keeps on giving. The novel's male and female protagonists, Humphrey Chimpton Earwicker and Anna Livia Pluribel, are then invoked right before the Prank Queen fable begins. Quote, hark the corn entreats, and the larp notes prittle, close quote. The beginning letters of each word spelling out HCE and ALP. The Prank Queen episode then unfolds, and immediately after we hear a motif that runs throughout the novel. Quote, O Phoenix culprit, close quote. This is the first of many Wakean variations on the Catholic concept of Felix culpa, referring to Adam's happy fall. Happy because without the fall there would be no redemption. With, quote, Phoenix culprit, close quote, the Wake has combined Felix culpa with the mythological phoenix that falls and rises, the central movement of Finnegans Wake, as well as with Dublin's Phoenix Park, the central location of the novel. Our excerpt closes with what appears to be Tim Finnegan rising, as he does in the eponymous folk song, from the dead, following a splash of whiskey. The alcoholic resurrection, though, really shouldn't surprise us, given that whiskey, formerly known as usquebaugh, derives from the Gaelic ishkabaha, meaning water of life. Richard Harte's reading of Finnegans Wake Chapter 1 was shot and recorded in 2022 in my home in Toronto with a small audience. It premiered at the Toronto Irish Film Festival, European Union Film Festival, and Bloomsday Film Festival at the James Joyce Centre in Dublin. And now it's time to welcome you all back into my home for Richard's continued reading of James Joyce's Finnegans Wake, page 19, line 20, to page 24, line 15 in Chapter 1.
Axon, twaxon, traxaxon wise. 1 by 1 plays 1b3, did a 1b4. 2 nurses 1 make a plausible 3 and then a behind. Start now with a big bow and 3-legged calvers and overgrown jadises with a message in their mouths. And 100 filled on 11 with laborum cure corn, and we can till all horrors eve. What a Neanderthal tale to unfurl, and with what an end in view of squatter and anti-squatter and post-prone anti-squatter. To say to us to be every Tim, Nick and Larry of us, sons of the sod, sons, little sons, yea, and little sons, when us is not to be every Sue, Sis, and Sally of us, doctors of Dan, accused of Ansire, damadam to infinities. True, there was in Neil's diabos as yet no lumpen papier in the waste of my mountain pen still grown for the mices to let flee. All was of ancientry. You gave me a boot, signs on it, and I ate the wind. I quizzed you a quid. With for what? And you went to the quad. A But the world, mind, is, was, and will be riding its own rounds forever, man. On all matters that fall under the ban of our infra-rational senses for the last milch camel, the heart vein throbbing between his eyebrows, still to moor before the tomb of his cousin Charmian, where his date is tethered by the palm that's hers. But the horn, the drinking, the day of dread are not now. A bone, a pebble, a ram skin. Chip them, chop them, cut them up all ways, leave them to terror cook in a modern pot. Gutenberg with his Crow Magnum Charter, tit and fast great primer, was once for them the most step rub lick read out of the word press. It's no 30 more now to horn. For that, the rap one warns, is what papier is made of. Hides and hints and misses in prints. Till he finally, though not yet end like, meet with the acquaintance of Mr. Typist, Mistress Tope, and all the little tip-topies. Fizzed up. So you need hardly spell me how every word will be bound over to carry 70 topsicle readings throughout the book of Double N's Giant. There's far to be darkened with one who would sunder, till Daleth, Mahom, who oped closed thereof the door. Cry not yet. There's many a smile to none dumb, with city maids for mansor, and the park so dark by kindlelight. But look what you have in your hand south. The movables are scrawling emotions, marching, all of them ago, in pit-pat and zing-zang, for every busy early-wig's a bit of authority there to tell. One's upon a time, and two's behind their let asleep, and three's among the strubbly beds, and the chicks pick their teeths, and the donkey he began. You can ask your ass if he believes it. So could it be only wallops have heels, that one of a wife with faulty barnets, for then was the age when hoops ran high, of a no ark and a chop wife, of a pom full grave and a family of levity, or of golden news I wanted gelding, or of what the mischief miss made a man do. Mad Mary Dad, he was reverse aghast by the frisk of her flasks and her pretty perique. Me faith, she's like the snaky woman from the trippieri toe expectung pellic. Veil Valentine eyes. She's a very bash when he blows neon good. Flew in, flow on. Ho. So it's sure it was her, not we. But lady easy, gentlemen, we are in rearing of another wig. So weeny, beeny, teeny. Come see. He do as if he knew. Listen. I am doing it. Hark, the corn and treats, and the larp notes prittle. It was of a night, late, long time agone, in an old stane eld, when Adam was delving, and his madam spinning water suds, when mulk mounting naughty man was every bully, and the first little ribber robber that ever had her ain way, everybody to his love-seeking eyes, and every billy lived a love with every biddy else, and Jarl Van Hooter had his burnt head high up in his lamp house, laying cold hands on himself. And his two little Jiminies, cousins of ours, Christopher and Hilary, were kick-a-haling their dummy on the oilcloth floor of his home-ride castle in Urton House. And Dermot, who come to the keep of his inn, only the niece of his in-law, the prankquean. And the prankquean pulled her rosy one and made her wit for Ninster door, and she lit up and Fireland was ablaze. And spoke she to the dower in her petty Perusian. Mark the wands, why do I am a look alike a pass a paw to peas? And that was how the skirmishes began. but the dour hand worded her grace in Dutch nassau, shut. So her grace and Alice kidnapped up the Jiminy Christopher and into the shandy westerness she ran. And Jan Van Hooter wallaced after with soft dove's gall. Stop, thief, stop, come back to my ear and stop. Well, she swore it did to him. Unlikelihood. And there was a brand new whale that same Sabbath night of far and angle somewhere in area. And the prank queen went for her 40 years walk in Torlamond, and she washed the blessings of the love spots off the Jiminy with some son of a substance, and she had a 4 owlers masters for to teach him his tickets, and she converted him to the one sure all good that he became a luderman. So then she started to reign. And to reign, and the Red Tom, she was back again at Yard Van Hooter's and embraced the samers, and the Jiminy with her in her pinafrond, late at night, at another time. And where did she come but to the bar of his bristery? And Yard Van Hooter had his beard all bruised, his drowned in his cellar malt, shaking warm hands with himself. And the Jiminy, a Hillary, and the dummy in their first infancy were below on the tear, she ringing and coughing like brother and hister. And the prank queen nipped the paley one and lit up again, and red cocks flew flackering from the hill combs. And she made her with her before the wicked, saying, Mark the why do I am a look alike 2 pass apart apiece? And, shut! Says the wicked, hand warden her majesty. So her majesty of Fort Hot sat down a Jiminy and took up a Jiminy, and all the lily pathways the woman's land she ran. And Jan Van Hooter bleated after her with loud Finnegans, stop, come back with my ear and stop. But the prank queens were they did, and liking it. And there was a wild old grand new world at Lawrencey night, a star shooting somewhere in area. And the prank queen went for her 40 years walk and turned the mean, and she punched the curses of Crom Cruel with the nail of a top into the Jiminy, and he had her 4 larksical manatrix to touch him his tears, and she perverted him to the one certain all secure, and he became a Christian. So then she started raining, and in a pair of changes be done to her. She was back again at Jarl Van Hooter's, and the laddie held with her under a rablonet. And why would she halt at all, if not by the word of his mansion home of another nice lace for the 3rd charm? And Jarl Van Hooter had his hurricane hips up to his pantry box, ruminating in his whole 4 stomachs. Dear, oh dear. And the Jiminy tougher trees of the dummy were beloved on the watercraft, kissing and spitting and roguing and poguing like knave paltry and naive bride, and in their 2nd infancy. And the prank queen picked a blank and lit out in the valleys lay twinkling. And she made her witness in front of the archway of Troy Hump, asking, Mark the tris, why do I am a look alike 3 pass apart apiece? But that was how the skirmishes end up. For like the Campbells are coming with a 4th lance of lightning, Jarl Van Hooter born urges himself. The old terror of the dames came hip up and yap out through the pike open archway of his 3 shutting castles, in his broad ginger hat and his civic challar and his alabuff hem and his bull bragging socks and gloves and his ladbroke breeks and his catgut bandolier and his 4-frame penuncular cummins like a rud yelling blue-green orangeman in his violent indogination, all launched of the strength of his bowman's bill, and he clapped his rude hand to his EC hitch, and he ordered as in his stick, spit for the shut Dappy, and the Dappy shut the shutter clap. Poor Quadroscur and Bagroy and Gockle Grom Grab Gunda through a tunnel ready diddy fitty tilly pumaluno cononna. And they all drank free. For one man in his armour was a fat match always for any girls under shirts. And that was the first piece of alliterative poetry in all the flaming, floody flash was world. How Kersey the toiler made a sweet unclose to the Norwegian capital. Saw forth thou shalt see, between ye and be. The prankquean was to hold her dummy ship, and the Jiminy's was to keep the peace wave, and Van Hooter was to get the wind up. Thus, the hearsomeness of the burgher felicitates the whole of the palace. Oh, Felix culprit, Tex Nichilo Mallow comes Michaelmas Bonum. Hill real ones in company, better than less be proud of. Breast high and be stride. Only for that these will not breathe upon northern knees and nor they bleeding in the secrets of their source lostness. Corey Silex Humphrey no answer. On the gent infested days living no answer. Vulcan cap is on him, frowned, or the Orient he would eavesdrop for a mouse in hand, for a din the bottles in the far ear. Murk, his veils are darkling. She lifted to him all the time with such and town and town. She had a lot. Fluke if he could bad trigger. Impalpable Ab hears the sound waves are his buffeteers. They tromp him with their troms, a wave of roar and a wave of whoosh, and the wave of hard and the wave of every never sluggers losing a mind. Well locked by his neighbour mistress and petrified in his offsprung, saves and succours. The moaning pipers could tell him to his face back, the loathly one whose low we are devourers are out buffered as out halibut, or they were pewter puff, the lip one whose live we drink out, how bit for her titty wink of the windfall, our breed and washer givers. There would not be a holy spire on the town, or a vessel floating in the dock made a big plain of ours. Nor a you, nor an I that play casting over nilbud by swap like, nor a tool, at all, and noddy him to the convenience. Dog in it, dog out by the skill of his tilt for himself, and all belonging to him, and he sweated his crew beneath his auspice for the living, and he earned his dread, and dragon volant, and he made louse for us, and he delivered us the ball weavers of men, and mighty liberator on through Tick-Dow, began he did, our ancestor most worshipful. Till he thought of a better one in his window's house with that blush mantle upon him from year's end to year's end. The wood again could whisper and grasses wake him, and may again when the fiery boar Decembers, and will again if so be soothed by elders who is younger shall be said, have you wines for my wedding, did you bring bride and bedding, will you whoop for my dead Nissa? Wake? Ishkabom. On the muckandal! Did you drink me, Tornell?
That was my friend and colleague Richard Harte reading from Finnegans Wake Chapter 1, pages 19 to 24, recorded live in Toronto on August 31st, 2022. Join us for episode 6 in a fortnight when Richard continues with the next 5 pages of Finnegans Wake to conclude Chapter 1 of Joyce's extraordinary epic. To be sure you don't miss any episodes, why not follow or subscribe to this podcast? And for more on One Little Goat's Finnegans Wake project, including transcripts of this podcast and trailers for the films, visit our website at onelittlegoat.org. Finnegans Wake is made possible by friends of One Little Goat Theatre Company and the Emigrant Support Programme of the Government of Ireland. Thank you for your support. And thank you to the artists for this episode: Richard Harte, sound by William Bembridge, podcast production by Sean Rasmussen, stage management by Laura Lakatosh, rehearsal stage management by Sandy Becker, directed by yours truly, Adam Seelig. Thanks to our live audience of Pip Dwyer, Kevin Kennedy, Kathy Murphy, Nomi Rotbard, Arlo Rotbard-Seelig, and thanks to our rehearsal audience of Jackie Chow, Jordy Kaufman, Andrew Moody, and Shai Rotbard-Seelig. Thank you to the Embassy of Ireland in Ottawa and the Irish Consulate in Toronto, and to production consultants Kathy Murphy and Andrew Moody. One Little Goat Theatre Company is a not-for-profit, artist-driven, registered charity. To find out more and to join our mailing list, please visit www.onelittlegoat.org. Thank you for listening.